Today on Locked on Rockies, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. set a deadline for a deal, and the Blue Jays and him were unable to get it done. Does that mean he's on the move? And should the Colorado Rockies be picking up the phone?
You are Locked on Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rock on Rockies fans, welcome into the Locked on Rockies podcast for today, the 19th day of February in the year 2025. I'm your host of the Locked on Rockies podcast, Paul Holden, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked on Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. And if your team is the Colorado Rockies, guess what? You're in the right spot, because that's what we do around here each and every day, free and streaming on your favorite streaming services and on the Locked on Rockies YouTube channel, where you can be part of the show. You can be someone that fires off your Rockies hot takes. You can let me know what's on your mind when it comes to the Colorado Rockies. Best way to interact with the show is by heading over to that Locked on Rockies YouTube comment section, firing off those Rockies hot takes, liking the video, subscribing, and being part of the show there. Today on the show, we're going to talk about Vladimir Guerrero Jr., going to talk about if that might be a possibility for the Colorado Rockies. Should it be a possibility for the Colorado Rockies? And we're starting to see our first couple of notes and little bit of information trickle out of spring training and camp. So we'll go over a couple of small things that was tweeted about yesterday from the folks that we saw, and we'll rock and roll on today's episode. So before we get started today, got to let you know that today's episode is your first listen of the day, and we really appreciate that. Thank you so much for making us your first listen of the day. For your second listen of the day, go check out our guy Sully over on the Locked on MLB podcast. So it was reported yesterday that no deal made between the Blue Jays and the big time slugger, that big hitting first baseman, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. So a little bit of here from Nick Deeds on MLB Trade Rumors. Really good piece, by the way, that references and links a bunch of stuff that basically tells this whole story and kind of gives you all the resources you need to know. So if you want to learn about this story a little bit more, I think like some of us have been here today and yesterday, go check out this piece on MLB Trade Rumors, because it really links to a bunch of stuff and kind of it paints the full picture there. But basically, that there was Guerrero put a deadline of yesterday to reach a deal. Nothing was made, and but does add that he could open the door for negotiations again. But no deal's done. Possibly signaling. Could be a trade deadline trade. Could be, something that happens during the year here, as Guerrero Jr. is facing free agency at the end of the season. Here's what Nick Deeds adds about Guerrero Jr.'s performance so far. Guerrero, still just 25 until March 16th, is one of the most accomplished young players in the league and is likely to enter free agency as the most sought-after player available. A four-time All-Star with a Gold Glove award at first base and 2 Silver Slugger awards under his belt, Guerrero is a 288, 363, 500 hitter, 137 WRC plus hitter for his career. That type of offensive talent will always be enticing to clubs in free agency, but what makes Guerrero stand out as a top of his class hitter is his combination of youth and ceiling. So when we explore the question, should the Rockies trade for Vladimir Guerrero Jr.? Yes, they should. But we know that's not how it's going to work. And we know, too, that this might, if you're the Rockies, when do you commit? When are you ready to we saw Tovar got the big deal, but a lot of that stuff, kind of covers arbitration and stuff like that. There's a potential Brenton Doyle deal that might be discussed, might not be being discussed, as well as, a couple of wait and see what happens if Dollander really does become big. What do the Rockies do with their young guys? However, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. changes the game for you with the Rockies and adds someone that would obviously be a huge, huge upgrade for the Colorado Rockies. Michael Toglia is an interesting player to watch this year. He is easily at the top of my list of most fascinating Rockies. But in a trade for Guerrero Jr., he'd have to be involved. I'd have to imagine a couple, another top Rockies prospect would have to be involved, draft picks. I mean, they're the whole nine. I can't imagine Toronto would take a deal where they would settle for something when their plan has been to be aggressive this offseason to build around and build up this team that they're really trying to, to kind of, make their point, make their run. How many times did you hear that? Oh, the Blue Jays are in on this free agent, this free agent, this free agent. That they've been trying to do things to build up their team and become a World Series contender, a playoff contender. And Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is the key point, is a key part of all of this. They tried building around him, tried getting a deal done. The profile and what he does would be huge for the Rockies. I mean, the guy hits home runs. The guy did win a Gold Glove and can play good defense at first base. I mean, the possible marriage of the Rockies and Vladimir Guerrero Jr., I think would be a successful one, and would be one where he would be somewhere that would really benefit from playing, from playing here, because I do think Toronto might be kind of a tough place to play. It's a lot of travel you got to do in certain instances, and I do wonder how it would be going from a domed stadium to not domed and dealing with the Coors Field effect. But let's just stamp it out here, right? The Rockies will never make this trade. The Rockies would not make this deal because I don't think it's simply would be in their MO. I just don't think that they would be sitting there saying it's worth doing everything we can to get Vladdy. Now, personally, with the age, with the position he plays, and what the Rockies need on offense, I don't think I would be all that against pairing Vladimir Guerrero Jr. with Brenton Doyle and Ezekiel Tovar, as well as the last little bit of Ryan McMahon, see what happens with the Chris Bryant situation. But that would also open up the possibility of it's not worth it for the Rockies to trade for Vladimir Guerrero for the rental. There are some teams that will say, you know what, we will take the hit. We will do the rental. We're not expecting to sign him in free agency, but let's bring the bat. Let's do something crazy. And then if something great happens, then maybe we can figure out a deal with Vladdy here and keep him around after their success with the team. But let's go a little bit further here on this MLB trade rumors piece here. And this is why the Rockies will not make the trade. I want to go and find it here. Where is it? Okay. It's easy to imagine the bidding, and I'm reading from MLB Trade Rumors. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. expects to reach free agency without extension by Nick Deeds on MLB Trade Rumors. Guerrero will hit the open market just 1 year older than Juan Soto was during his own free agency this past winter, and that young age was crucial in Soto in securing his record-shattering deal that figures to pay him $765 million over the next 15 years and could max out at more than $800 million. That massive payday came in spite of Soto being a limited defender in the outfield corners who does not provide substantial value on the base pass. While Soto is arguably in a class all his own as a hitter with his career 158 WRC plus, nearly matching Guerrero's peak seasons, his record payday is still great news for the Jays slugger, as there's arguably no better comparison for Soto in the league than Guerrero at his peak. Given that, it's easy to imagine the bidding for Guerrero's services surpassing $500 million. That seems to be right around where Guerrero set the bar in extension talks with Toronto, as reports regarding his asking price have suggested he was looking for north of $450 million. As Passan notes, Guerrero answered with a simple no when asked if the Blue Jays had put forth an offer that was close to his price point, and given Guerrero said earlier this winter that Toronto's offer to him prior to Soto's deal with the Mets sat at $340 million, it's hard to argue with his assessment unless the club brought their offer significantly higher over the course of the offseason. So there it is. The Rockies can't trade for Vladdy if they aren't anticipating paying him the massive payday. And the Rockies have handed out some big contracts before, but never at that level. Never at the 350 plus the 400. Remember, the Chris Bryant deal is for what, $187 million, I believe. The total package. Yeah, 7-year, $182 million. That's not even half of what their people are expecting for Vladimir Guerrero Jr. You double that, and that's roughly around that first initial reported deal for 7 years of Chris Bryant at his 30-year-old season. You know, you're talking about a 10-year, $450 million plus contract that, while I do believe could be the batter profile and the player, would it be worth trying to make a crazy splash like that? Yes. But it's just not, it would be a drastic change for the Colorado Rockies. It would be a huge change for the Colorado Rockies. And mixing in the fact that if you're trading for him at the trade deadline, you're already giving up what you've given up. You know, you're probably giving up Michael Toglia. Good chance you could be giving up, I would maybe put a Hunter Goodman in there, draft picks, someone that maybe, again, pick your trade package, whatever it is, it's going to sting the Rockies a little bit. And then you're going to follow that up with the Rockies having to pay an extension of nearly $500 million, or in that range, $400 to $500 million, and commit to Vladdy for 10 years. Could that be super successful? Could that be great? Could Vladdy be the best first baseman the Rockies have had since, and would statistically probably be on paper the best first baseman the Rockies have had since Todd Helton? Absolutely. Absolutely. But it's going to take a lot of money. It's going to take a big deal. And I just don't see, I have no faith that the Rockies are going to be in on that, especially when you think of like the bidding war that's going to be this offseason. Because I do think, here's the thing, as much as people were frustrated about the Dodgers, I don't think the Dodgers are going to keep getting away with signing everybody. And you're going to be like, well, the people that they've signed a multi-year deals. I understand that, but I don't think the Dodgers are going to be able to keep being the biggest dog, the biggest spender, the person that gets everything in free agency. Because eventually they're going to have to be like, look at what we have. And eventually, as the one thing that it might seem like kind of hard to think about or consider here is like, down the line, these Dodgers players are going to be getting a little older. Every season that happens is, we've got to go through it. But the Dodgers are going to look like a different team in 3 years, in terms of some of their stars, or 2 years even, and some of the, what is their rotation. And yes, they're the team that has that incredible farm system. But I don't think the Yankees are going to keep missing out on people. If the Blue Jays were as serious as they were about adding in the level of talent that they wanted to add this offseason, they should be able to get a deal done here with a player that they know, they have the relationship, and they want to build around. But I don't think the rest of baseball is going to sit back and let the Dodgers keep doing what they're doing, starting with next offseason. I think there's going to be a lot of teams that are going to be really, maybe they'll play who knows? Who could be the Padres? Could be the Diamondbacks. By the way, speaking about the Diamondbacks, we're going to have a crossover episode with Locked On Diamondbacks coming up on Friday, because the Diamondbacks have had a good offseason. Nobody's talking about it, and the Diamondbacks are going to be a problem. But anyway, so my point is, I think if you're the Blue Jays, you know what? I'll tell you what I think the Blue Jays should do coming up here after the break, right here on today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Before we do that, though, got to tell you about the folks that help make this show possible, and that includes a wonderful Pistachios. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Well, crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10%, yes, 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to keep you feeling fuller, longer. You can say, hey, guess what? I know you're sitting there thinking, man, I love me some wonderful pistachios, but sometimes I'm making a mess. I'm leaving these shells everywhere. I'm at the office. I got the kids. I got to worry about them. They're a little too small. They don't know what shells are yet. I don't want them putting them in their mouth when they shouldn't be. Well, guess what? They got the no shell variety. It's perfect for the grab and go snack for busy days, whether you're on snacking at the desk, on the road, or whenever you need a quick protein boost. All so good, and so many options for you as well. They got that little, but I'm not gonna lie, I like the shells because I like the sound of that crack every single time you crack them open. Get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. That's Wonderful Pistachios, and you can visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. This is the Locked On Rockies podcast. We're free and streaming on your favorite streaming services, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. Also, remember, Locked On Rockies is your first listen of the day, but Locked On MLB is a great option for your second listen of the day. And, of course, the Locked On Podcast Network has you covered when it comes to Colorado sports. Locked On Broncos, Locked On Avalanche, Locked On Nuggets, and Locked On Buffs as well. So we're talking Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Unfortunately, again, I just don't think that this is something the Rockies not only would do, I think it's not something the Rockies would do. I don't think it's something the Rockies are ready to make that level of commitment for. However, though, like when you're talking about a free agent guy that would make total sense with the Rockies, a slugging Gold Glove caliber first baseman, we know that's a recipe for success in Colorado. We know that that's something that the Rockies would benefit from. 30 home runs. You can imagine that probably goes up if he plays there. 103 RBI, 98 runs scored last year. His batting average was insane. He probably, I believe that his 6.2 WAR is nearly double the highest player on the Rockies from last year. Let's see what else, just to go through. I want to see 44 doubles last year as well. 96 strikeouts during that time as well. So his lowest strikeout rate of his career so far. He's getting better. And he's already been off to a 21.5 WAR career. Adding Vladimir Guerrero to the Colorado Rockies would be a huge win. And I think it would be, personally, I do think it would be worth, ponying up the money and trying to make it happen. But this would be a franchise altering move that I just don't have confidence that the Rockies, that they think it's in their best interest and that they want to do, because they especially as we're experiencing a season in which the idea is cutting payroll. And the financials of the Rockies are really up in the air, because yes, they're a team that has good attendance compared to others, but they're also a team that probably, I can't imagine, has a very popular team streaming package. I don't think a lot of people are signing up to watch I really don't. I mean, I think the average Rockies consumption this year, not by the diehards, not by you everydayers. I mean, if you're tuning in to Locked On Rockies, I know you're watching games. I know you're tuning in. I know you got the streaming package, or you're tuning in on the radio and stuff like that. But I'm saying the average Denver sports fan, or just average Denver citizen, Colorado citizen, will go to more games this year than they watch on TV. If they're going to consume Rockies baseball, they're going to buy a cheap ticket. They're going to sit out, enjoy a sunny day, enjoy a beautiful evening, and they're going to watch it there. And I don't know how, and maybe tell me if I'm wrong. Let me know in the comments if you know a lot of people that are tuning in. I'm hoping that it's going to be easier for the Rockies to be on TV this year, like traditional TV, how some other teams have done it, and able to partner with the streaming services, with the cable networks, with Major League Baseball, and get them on TV. But we'll see. So a Vladimir Guerrero Jr. move would change the landscape for fans too, and immediately spike interest in the team. But you can't trade for him unless you're signing him to the deal. And do you see Dick Monfort spending $450 million plus on a player? I think the thing that's really important to remember about that Vladdy thing is the fact that he's 25, and that key point from the MLB trade rumors piece there. 1 year older than Juan Soto hitting free agency. 26 years old he'll be when he hits free agency at the end of the season. I mean, the world is his oyster right now. All Vladimir Guerrero Jr. really has to do is continue to do what he's doing, continue to be the strong player he's doing, and let the chips fall. Because he either gets traded to a contender and things fall through with the Blue Jays, and he enters in, he does what Juan Soto just did, and he goes into free agency as the highest coveted free agent of the offseason, in which teams are already going to be hungry to add and hungry to compete. Like I said, I really don't think teams are going to be standing. Not all the teams, but the teams that have the big money, the big influence, the big power. I don't think they're going to sit by and continue to let the Dodgers be the team that gets everybody. Continue to let the Dodgers be the team that adds the biggest names, and they don't care what it costs. And I do wonder, though, if you're sitting there as the Rockies and you're sitting there as an owner of the team, and you do see a player of this level, a player of this caliber, if he does hit the free agency market, when do you start talking about that move being the move that's worth it for the Rockies? That investment is worth it for the Rockies. If you sign Vladimir Guerrero to that big deal, a never before in Rockies history big deal like that, and it pays out for the next 10 years, whether it be, attendance, whether it be performance, eventually the Rockies are going to have to make themselves ready to make that type of move. I don't think they're ready to do it now. I don't think it's in there. It's something for them to, I don't even think it's on their radar for them to consider. But adding Vladimir Guerrero Jr. to the Colorado Rockies would be a huge, huge win. Unfortunately, it just ain't going to happen. The trade is going to cost too much. The contract is going to cost too much. And the Rockies are going to stick to what they believe they are. They are the draft and develop team, but just don't look at the FanGraph projections for all the position groups, which we'll be doing tomorrow. The previews for, again, another a prediction for the Rockies where the talent just isn't stacking up compared, and these are projections, mind you. The talent isn't stacking up to the rest of baseball. Not just the NL West, the rest of baseball. If you the stuff we're going to talk about, the Rockies are projected to be the worst team in baseball, not only by record, but each position group. I think the Rockies were dead last in all four position groups: outfield, infield, starting rotation, and bullpen. By FanGraphs projections for next year. And we're going to dive more into that tomorrow. But I just want to set that I want to plant that seed, because the narrative starts changing about the Colorado Rockies the second you make this move. It really does. And in reality, personally, if you're going to trade for him, you do it sooner rather than later. Get the full season of him. Have him come play now. Why wait for the deadline when the season's already off? If this is something that's even a small glimmer in the Rockies' mind, now's the time to get the deal done. But there's too much there. Too much money, too much influence, too many teams getting involved, and too big of an identity shaker for the Rockies, I think, for this deal to get done. But it'd be really cool. I think it would make sense. I think he's a player worth the investment, especially when you're thinking about the profile for Coors Field. He fits so many things. It's first base. We know how impactful a great power hitting first baseman can be at altitude and with the Colorado Rockies. But like I said, not going to happen. Not going to happen. But we can fantasize, right? We can talk about it here on the Locked On Rockies podcast. All right, couple of notes from spring training so far as things are just getting underway. going to talk about that next, coming up on today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Welcome back into the Locked On Rockies podcast. We are your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Shouting out to you, the everydayers, and shouting out my guy, Barron, who let me know about the Vladimir Guerrero Jr. trade. Talking some baseball over with my Mario baseball buddies, and he pointed the way, letting me know when the news was just breaking. So I was like, ooh, that sounds like a good podcast title. And good fun. And I wish we could actually talk about it being a real possibility. I do think like there's a lot of stuff that would make sense for the Rockies about adding Vladdy, but unfortunately, just is something that we just can't get too excited about because we know that we know that it ain't happening. We know that it ain't the case. Anyway. Wanted to talk about a couple of quick notes from camp that we've heard as the Rockies media is down there right now. First things first, Zach Veen has purple hair. And again, I know that it's been kind of up and down with Veen, and this could be a big year for him, and we want to see more. But I think it seems like the vibes amongst the Rockies are good. And I really like that this team seems close, and I do think that adds an added benefit. I like guys like Veen that come in that take it seriously. I mean, this is a guy that's still trying to make his debut and fight his way onto the roster here and finally show off what he can do. But he also, leaning into it, have some fun, dyeing the hair purple. Like, you need personality within that clubhouse too. And I think that Veen is the nice type. It seems like the type of guy that could bring in a little fun, a little energy, a little jokesterness, not to take it with the edge off of it, but just to keep things a little bit more loose and help keep things kind of flowing together between guys. I know that's kind of maybe a weird thing, but it's just it's also dope. Hey, I like it when players buy into being Rockies, dyeing their hair purple, really buying into their club. I like that stuff. Patrick Saunders tweeted out a video from German Marquez throwing live BP. Fastball hit 98. Now, I got super pumped about Kyle Freeland's increased velocity over the spring last year, so I won't let that be, I won't let it blind me too much and let it, completely cloud my judgment. But I will say, I like hearing 98. I like hearing the fact that he's able to pipe it there, that he's able to get the ball up that high in terms of velocity. And this is only spring training. I mean, hopefully that's a sign that he's feeling healthy and good. Hopefully it's it's not moving too fast and doing too much too quickly here for German. But 98 in one of the first BP sessions of the camp is a great sign for me. Here's an interesting one, and I know we got an everydayer out there that's a big fan of Hunter Goodman, and that's going to be buying into it. So I think this will be relating to them. Rockies will give a bulk of the starts at catcher to Jacob Stallings. After that, it'll be a camp battle between Drew Romo, Hunter Goodman, and Austin Nola. Might manager Bud Black carry 3 catchers for opening day? No. This was from Patrick Lyons over here tweeting about that. So there is so there's that. And then another interesting note here from Patrick Lyons, and this is big. This is not something to sleep on, folks. Because this is how you know something might be coming sooner rather than later. MLB will be implementing an automatic ball strike system during spring training 2025. The top of the strike zone will be 53.5% of a player's height, while bottom is 27%. The first team to get measured by a third-party company, the Colorado Rockies. I don't know exactly what that the last part means there, the measurement by the third-party system, but this is I don't know how it's going to work. I don't know what it's going to look like. This is one of those massive changes that is going to shake things up for a lot of people. But it will be interesting to see the challenging of balls and strikes. It will be interesting to see what this implementation looks like, and it is going to be interesting to see it in a game sense. And again, these are the type of things you got to test and you got to get data on. So now's the time to do it. Spring training is the time to check this stuff out and start doing it because I think the majors need to get a taste of this stuff too. it's good that they get the extended testing and they get the extended data and the extended looks at the minor league level and at the other systems throughout baseball. But it's good to get the major league players involved in this type of stuff so we can kind of get a better understanding of how they feel, how they see it. Because just think about the pitcher clock conversation and all those things before it kind of snuck up and got to the major league level. Some players were used to it for where they were at and where they were at in their minor league careers. But I think if you're going to do these type of rule changes, you got to make sure that you're doing it at a level that a lot of players can get experience with. And spring training is the perfect place to do it. It's the perfect spring training is the perfect place to see about how can you make baseball the fastest version of it, because it's again, it's players are getting it's completely different lineups at the second half of the ball game or after 2 innings. I mean, now's the time. Everyone's doing so much tinkering and testing and trying things out anyway during spring training. Now's the time to do that type of stuff. I do think the future of baseball, and I don't know exactly what that is going to be a harmony between human umpires with some sort of backing up, with a system that can back up and check it. But I do know for one thing, not everyone's going to like it, and it ain't going to be a solution that works all the time and for everybody, and it won't be perfect because we've seen that with every replay assistant tool in sports history. But just adds another layer of drama that we love. All right, folks, like I said, we'll be talking FanGraphs position projections coming up tomorrow, so don't miss out on that. Locked On Rockies, Locked On Diamondbacks crossover coming up on Friday as well, so don't miss out on that. But, folks, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Make sure you head on over to the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel to be part of the show. Fire off your Rockies hot takes and let me know what's on your mind when it comes to the Colorado Rockies. And for your second listen of the day, go check out Locked On MLB and all our pals on the Locked On Podcast Network, the Locked On Broncos Podcast, Locked On Avalanche, Locked On Nuggets, Locked On Buffs, all free and streaming on your favorite streaming services. Until next time, this is Paul Holden saying so long from the Locked On Rockies Podcast.